Hello everyone, Eunice here. Today I'm not wearing my very silly wig, but I'm wearing these very cute, very pink, very heart-shaped glasses that actually I cannot see through, so I will need to put them down too. And when I'm done with this task, let's start working on our illustration. Today we have a very simple illustration of a cookie. So let's begin by deciding what kind of canvas we're going to be using. Today we are using a standard square canvas that you can find in Procreate. Both our pixel width and pixel height are set at 2048 pixels. Our DPI are at 300 and our color profile is set as sRGB with this low number. When it's all done, hitting down, getting redirected to our new canvas, zooming it out a bit, and let's begin our preparational part. So firstly, if you want to use all the colors that you will see throughout this tutorial, please go under the description and download everything that you will see throughout this tutorial. And when you did it, let's firstly go and select the brush that we are going to be working with. So go into our brush library, go into the calligraphy folder and select monoline brush. And as we are creating a very kawaii illustration, we'll need all of our lines to be very, very smooth. So let's go and adjust some options. We will tap onto our brush, we will go to the brush studio, we'll go under stabilization on the left, and we will be playing with amount of streamline and amount of stabilization. So you can set these options the same way as you see them right now onto your screen. I'm using the settings in that way for every illustration that I make. If it's not comfortable for you, you can go to the drawing pad and you can try it out right here and maybe tweak these options until you like the result. When you are done, let's hit done. And then when we are done with our brush, let's go to our color palettes. We will go under cards and we will select our color with the title Line Darks. When we have the color, let's go and change the color of our background. So go into our layers, go into our background color, again going under cards and selecting background color right here. Now, the last thing that we will need to do for our preparational part is to go to our slider with the size and we will set the size to 6%. When we are done, we are ready to start creating our first shape and the base of our cookie. So let's go to our canvas and with one line, we will create a shape like that. So hold your line at the end and now it might not look like a perfectly rounded circle. But for now, when we are holding our Apple Pencil, let's move it from side to side and find the size of this element to our liking. And when we are done with it, let's lift up our Apple Pencil and let's go to this popped up option ellipse. This is our editing mode. So into our editing mode, we have the option circle, so let's tap on it. And when we have a perfectly rounded circle, let's position it slightly differently by moving our shape, by holding our Apple Pencil and moving it more toward the center. So find the placement for this shape, and when you are done, let's tap on the screen, and now we have the base for our cookie. So now we can move on to creating some details, but let's make our life a little bit more interesting and a little bit more easy. So we will go and create a couple of guiding lines to help us with creating our details. Firstly, we will go to our layers, we will tap on the plus icon to create a new layer, and then we will go more toward the center and with one line, we will create a line like that. Holding it at the ends, it is going through the center of our shape. When you are done, let's go above this line and create another parallel line to what we have on the bottom. If you need to move it, you can go to the editing mode and move it the same way as we moved our main shape. When you are done with it, tap on the screen and let's go and make these lines a little bit less visible. So going back to our layers, go into the N icon on this layer, go into our slider with opacity and dragging it toward the left until we like the result. When we are done, let's tap on the layer to close this window and then we'll get back to our layer with our main shape. So now when we are at our main shape, let's go and create the arms. So firstly, we will go toward this line that we have in the bottom and we will go toward the sides and we will start by creating a shape like that. So hold your line at the end to make it nicer and cuter, and if you need to adjust it, go to the editing mode and you can see we have the nodes right here, so we can go to them, we can drag them, we can tweak them, we can adjust the placement of this element if you want to. So find what works for you, and when you are done, let's tap on the screen and go to the opposite side and create something similar here. Creating our shape, holding it at the end, go into our editing mode and adjusting it to make it similar to what we have on the opposite side. Now, when you are done, let's tap on the screen and let's accept our changes. Now let's take a look at it from the distance and decide whether we want to adjust it or not. So for example, we can grab our eraser and go toward the top part to erase the lines a little bit right here. So with the bigger size of the eraser, let's firstly go and create the line like that. We can hold it at the end, and then we will go and erase the rest of the line that we don't need. And let's do the same on the opposite side too. So cutting the part firstly, trying to make a very soft little line right here. If we need to go and adjust it through the editing mode, we can go and do that. When we are done, tapping on the screen and erasing the last of the line that we don't need. Now, when we have the lines for our arms, let's move on to our facial features, and we will start by creating a mouth. Getting back to our brush firstly, and we will go between these lines that we have right here and create the shape similar to what we have outside. So create a shape, hold it at the end. Let's go and make it slightly bigger, and we will also go to our editing mode to adjust it. So we can go and play with the nodes. We can maybe change the size of it, placement of it. Try to position it quietly at the center, and when we have the result that we like, let's tap on the screen, and then let's go toward our icon on the top right, and we will drag and drop the color inside. Now, when we have the shape like that, let's go and make it a little bit interesting, and we will go and do it with our eraser. So grab the eraser, adjust the size of it if you need to, and let's go over the top to create a cut like that. With one line, holding it at the end. If we need to go to the editing mode and maybe adjust the curvature, we will go and do that. So find what looks good, and when we have the result like that, tap on the screen. You can adjust the size of the brush, and we will go over the top and we will erase this part that we don't need. Now let's get back to the smaller size of the eraser, and again, as we are creating a very kawaii illustration, let's go to these corners that we have and let's soften them up with our eraser. So instead of these very straight corners, we are creating the soft curves. Hold your line at the end if you need to. Go to the editing mode if you probably would need to adjust the curvature right here. So find what looks good again, and when you are done, tap on the screen. If you have some lines that you need to erase manually, go and do that. And when we have the mouth, let's move on to creating our eye. So firstly, getting back to our brush, go into this line that we have on the top, and again with one line creating a shape of the circle. Holding our line at the end, adjusting the size by moving our Apple Pencil from side to side. And let's go to our editing mode to firstly select the circle, and then we will need to find the placement for this element. So you can go and zoom out your canvas to see in a clear way what we are doing right here. And when you find the placement for this eye, probably pay more attention to this area between the eye and the arm, because we will have some space right here. We will need to have some space right here. So when you find the placement like that, let's tap on the screen, and again straight away let's drag and drop the color inside. Now when we have the eye, to finish it up, let's go and add the highlight. Go into our color palette and switching the color to light gray. Now go toward the top of the shape and create a shape of the ellipse like that. Hold the line, adjust the curvature, adjust everything that you want to adjust right here. Go to the editing mode if you need to, and then manually go inside the shape and add the color right here. Now, when we have the result like that, let's get back to our color palette, and firstly we will get back to our lines dark color, and then let's go and make a copy of this eye. We will do it by going to our S ribbon icon. We will select freehand method, and with our selection we will go around this eye. We will loop the shape around, and when only this element is selected, we will use 3 fingers and we will swipe them down from top to the bottom to select the option copy firstly, and then one more time 3 fingers down using the option paste. Now, when we have this bounding box, let's move our second eye toward the opposite side. Let's try to position it on the same line. Let's try to keep the distance between the eye and the arm. So when you found the placement for it, let's tap onto our arrow key to deselect it. And then we will need to do one more thing. We will need to go to our layers, and you will see that you have the inserted image layer. This is our copy, and we will need to merge it with the previous layer. So tapping onto this inserted image layer and selecting the option merge down. And now we are done with our facial features. So let's go and firstly get rid of these guiding lines because we don't need them anymore. We will go to this layer and we will swipe it from right to left and choose the option delete. And now getting back to our cookie, and let's go and work onto the inside parts by adding chocolate chips. So firstly, let's go and switch the size of the brush to 4%. And then we will firstly go along this shape and we will start to create wobbly shapes like that. Let's go along the lines, the outside parts, and create a couple of these details right here. You can vary their size, you can vary the amount of these shapes. Try not to overdo it and create something cute. So now when we have these big shapes inside our shape of the cookie, let's go more inside the shape and let's add a couple of details here in the shapes of some beans or some little lines like that, little shapes. So going along the shapes that we have right here, and we are trying to fill them with peculiar little details that will look like chocolate chips. So going there and starting to create our elements, starting to make the shapes, varying the size of the shapes, try not to overdo everything right here. And we are also trying to make the closed shapes. So that means that we will need to have all the lines closed and we will need not to have some gaps inside our lines. So let's go and finish up this task by going toward the top and adding some details here. Take a look at it from the distance and then let's go outside and let's add some crumbles there too. So for example, going toward the right and creating a couple of elements here too. When we are done with the right part, let's go toward the left and create 2 more details like that here too. When we have the result like that, let's go and work onto our lines precisely. So again, we will be zooming in our canvas and we will be trying to make our lines smoother and closer. So we will go along these shapes and we will be working onto our lines with our brush and with our eraser. Make sure that all of the lines are closed. Make sure that all of the lines are looking nice. If you need to add some little elements right here or erase them, you know what you need to do. Use your brush, use your eraser and adjust these shapes. Go outside too if you need to adjust the parts here too. Basically work onto the lines and try to create them in a nice way. When you are done with this task, we are done with our lines, so we can move on to the coloring part. To start with our coloring, let's get back to our layers, and we want to add the colors on separate layers from our lines, so we will be able to adjust our lines if we want to later on. So let's firstly go and create one more layer on top. We will grab this layer, hold it, and drag it underneath our layer with the lines. And then we will get back to our layer with the lines, we will tap on it, and we will select the option Reference. That way we'll be able to use these lines and add the colors on separate layers. So now let's get back to our new layer. We will go to our color palette. We will select the color with the name body and we will drag it toward the middle part. When we did it, let's again get back to our layers, create one more layer on top, and onto this layer we will switch the color to the chocolate, and with the chocolate color let's go to one of the chocolate chips, and then we will use the option continue filling on the top, and we will go through all of these elements and we will start to tap on them to recolor their inside parts. So let's go through all of these little details that we've added. Let's start tapping on them and let's recolor them all. When you are done with this task, let's tap onto this check mark on the top to accept our changes. And then let's start adding some shadows because we are done with our basic colors. So firstly, let's get back to our layers, and we don't need reference anymore onto our layer with the lines. So let's go back to our layer with the lines. Let's tap on it and let's select reference from the list. Now let's get back to our main shape with the cookie, and we will create one more layer above. We want our shadows to appear only on the areas inside the cookie, so let's tap onto this new layer and let's select clipping mask. Now when we did it, let's get back to our color palettes and we will select the color with the name body details. Let's adjust the size of our brush to something bigger, and we will firstly go over the bottom part and we will create a big curve like that. You can hold it at the end, you can go to the editing mode, play around with the nodes right here, maybe adjust the curve, find what you are looking for right here, tap on the screen, and when you have the first curve, let's go on the bottom and we will loom the shape around to close it, and then we will drag and drop the color inside. Now, when we have the shape like that, let's go and start adding the shadows onto some other areas. So firstly, we will go toward the arms. Let's go to the bottom part. Let's start to create the curves right here. We want to create very soft corners. So if you can, go and create the very soft corners. And then when you have the outline, drag and drop the color inside. Again, if you need to manually go and adjust some parts, go and do that. And let's go to the opposite side and create the similar shape right here. So starting by creating a shape on the bottom and then creating a very nice curve underneath the arm and creating the shape like that. We also will need to go right here to the side and close up the shape to be able to drag and drop the color inside. And now when we have the result like that, let's go underneath our shapes of the chocolate chips. We can probably go with a bigger size of the brush, and we will be adding the shadows underneath them too. So we are mostly repeating the shapes of them, and we are putting our shadows underneath them to match the shadow that we have on the bottom. So we will need to position these shapes on the same side where we have our main shadow. So let's go through all of these little details and let's add the shadows right here to make the way that they look a little bit protruding. So let's go through all of them, going toward the opposite side too, starting to add our shadows here too. When you are done with this task, we also can go and start to add some shadows, like a texture parts, the shadowy texture parts. So let's go firstly toward the bottom part and let's create some bumps right here onto our outline. So we can go and again vary the size of these parts. We can go toward the top right here, add the little shadows in the shape of the bumps. And when we are done with the outline, we also can go inside the shape and start to add some peculiar shapes, the texture parts right here too. So we can go with some simple dots, maybe something more peculiar like little hearts or oval shapes. So you can go and add a couple of these details. And again, try not to overdo everything that you are doing right here. So add a few of these details, and when you are done with this task, let's go and make it a little bit more in depth. So we will add another shadow. Go into our layers, creating one more layer on top, tapping on the layer and selecting our clipping mask one more time. Let's go toward our color palettes and switch the color to body shadow. And with this color, we will go to the bottom and we will create another shape like that. So we are repeating the overall shape that we had before. If you need to adjust it, go to the editing mode, adjust the curvature, find what looks good, tap on the screen, accept the changes, and then loom the shape around like that. And let's go and add the color inside. I can see that my clipping mask didn't work, so don't worry, we will firstly go and drag and drop the color to this area, and we will get back to the layers. We will tap on this layer one more time if you have the same problem, and we will use our clipping mask. So now when everything looks nice, let's go and again, let's add some texture parts. So if you have some accidental little features that you don't need, go and erase them, and basically go through the bottom parts to this line, and let's go and add couple of the bumps right here. If you want to go outside and maybe add some dots right here, you are welcome to go and do that too. And when we have the result like that, let's go and make these shadows a little bit more beautiful. So firstly, we will get back to our layers. We will go back to our first layer with the shadow. We will tap onto the N icon and we will switch the blending mode to multiply. And straight away, let's go to the opacity slider and set it to something around 50%. Now you can see how subtle this shadow looks, and it looks a little bit more beautiful. And we will do the same with the layer that we have on the top. So firstly, selecting it, go into the N icon, selecting multiply blending mode and setting the opacity to something around 50%. When we have the result like that, we are done with our shadows on the main shape of the cookie. So let's go and create the highlight on the top. So firstly, go into our layers and creating one more layer on top, tapping on it, selecting clipping mask, go into the N icon, and we will switch the blending mode to overlay. And straight away, we can go to the opacity slider and set it to something around 75%. Then we will need to go to our color palettes and we will need to select this light gray color. Let's go to the opposite side from our shadows. So for example, right here on the top, we will loom the shape around. We will create a similar shape to our chocolate chips and we will drag the color inside. Now also we can go toward the top of the arms. We can add our little highlights there too. And the same way as with these little texture parts, we can go and start adding them toward the middle part of our cookie. So you can go again with some oval shape, with some dots, with something like that, maybe something more peculiar. When you are done with this task, let's go and do the same with our chocolate chips. So firstly, going back to our layers, go into our layer with chocolate chips, creating one more layer here, tapping onto this layer and selecting our clipping mask. Straight away, we can go to our N icon, set the opacity, set the blending mode to multiply and set the opacity to something around 35%, for example. And when we did it, let's get back to our color palettes and select chocolate shadow color. Let's adjust the size of our brush. And again, we are doing the same thing here. We are going to the bottom parts of our chocolate parts and starting to add the shadows. Going for all of them, you can go with the outlines and then drag and drop the color inside, or you can go and manually recolor these areas. Drag the color, go through all of these parts, try to go to the same side where you have the main shadow and all the shadows that you had before. Go outside here too. Add the color to these parts. You can go with some peculiar shapes for the shadows. You can experiment a little bit. Go to these little parts here too. So basically going through all of them and starting to add our shadows. Let's go to the small parts here. Let's go outside one more time. And when we are done with our shadows, let's go and add the highlights to the chocolate parts. So again, go into our layers, tapping on the plus icon, tapping on this new layer, selecting our clipping mask, go into the N icon, overlay blending mode, and again, let's set the opacity to something around 75%. When we did it, let's get back to our color palettes and switch the light gray color. And when we have it, let's go to the opposite sides from our shadows and let's go and add the highlights in the shape of the little lines like that, little dots. You can go to all of these elements of the chocolate chips, or you can go only to the bigger ones and create some highlights there. So it's up to you. You can experiment and try it out. If you don't like it, you can always delete it if you need to. So now when we have the highlights onto the chocolate parts, let's go and work onto our facial features. So firstly, going back to our layers and let's go to our layer with the lines. Let's create one more layer on top. Let's tap on it and let's select our clipping mask. Now go into our color palette and let's select this cheeks and mouth color. And firstly, we will go toward the bottom part of our mouth and we will create a curve like that. So hold it at the end, go to the editing mode if you want to adjust it. Loom the shape around and drag and drop the color inside. When we have it, we also can make it a little bit more visible and a little bit more beautiful. Firstly, by going to our eraser and we will go toward the sides and we will cut the parts right here. So you can start by creating a line like that. You can go and maybe use the editing mode and create something like that. Straight away, we can go and soften up the corner right here. And when we are done with the first side, let's do the same on the opposite side too. So go in there, starting by creating a line like that, and then going toward the top part to the corner and softening it up. When we have the result like that, let's also go and add a little shadow right here inside the mouth. And we will firstly go to our color palettes and we will select this body shadow color. Then we will get back to our layers and we will tap onto this layer where we have our tongue and we will choose the option Alpha Lock. When we did it with the bigger size of the brush, let's go over the top and let's add our shadows here. So when we have the result like that, let's get back to our layers. Let's again tap onto this layer to turn off our alpha lock, and then we will get back to our layer with our cookie, the main shape of it, and we will create one more layer here. With the color with the title Cheeks and Mouth, let's go firstly underneath one of the eyes. We will go to this area that we kept right here. We will create a shape of the ellipse and we will drag and drop the color inside. Now, if you want to move it, go and maybe move it. Find what you like right here. When you are done with it, we can go to our color palettes and we will select dark red lines color. With the size of the brush of 6%, we will go inside this cheek and we will add a couple of lines like that. When we have the shape like that, I'll probably add another line right here. When we have the shape that we like, let's go and make a copy of it. So we will go to our layers, we will swipe this layer with the cheek from right to left, and we will choose the option duplicate. Now, when we have the second copy, we will go to our arrow key, uniform method, and we will drag this cheek to the opposite side. If you want to rotate it, you can go to the green node, hold it, and make a rotational movement right here. Find the placement for this element. When you are done, tap onto the arrow key to accept the changes. And then we will go to our layers and we will merge these two layers together. So go into the layer on the top, tapping and selecting merge down. Now let's go and work onto our lines as our final touches. So firstly, go into this layer where we have our tongue and creating one more layer here, tapping on it and selecting clipping mask. Now we have this red color selected, that's exactly what we need, but we will need to go to our brush library and we will go to the airbrushing folder to select soft blend brush. We will set the opacity of this brush to something around 20%, and then we will go toward the bottom part of our eyes and we will start to add this very nice and very soft glow. When we have the result that we like, we will go to our color palettes and we will switch the color to line slide. And with the same brush, we will go over the top, maybe with a bigger size of the brush, and we will add the second color right here. But we will need to pay attention to the transition between the colors, so we don't want it to look very blotchy. We want very smooth transitions. So pay attention to this part. And when you are done with the top part, let's also go toward the arms and let's add a bit of a color right here on the top too. Now, when we are done with this task, let's get back to our brush library, calligraphy folder, monoline brush, and actually let's get back to our layers. Go to our layer with the lines, switch the color to lines dark, and let's go above the eyes with our 6% of the size of the brush, and let's go and create little eyebrows right here to make our illustration even cuter. When we have the result like that, to finish up the very final touches, we will go to our layers, we will go above all the layers, we will create one more layer on top, we will go to our color palette, select light gray color, we will adjust the size of the brush if we want to, and we can go outside the shape and we can create a couple of little beautification parts like that. And when you have the result that you like, we are done with our illustration. I hope you are proud of your result. Share it on socials and tag me so I can see your beautiful creations. And if you enjoyed this video, you can find more similar kawaii tutorials on my Skillshare or on Patreon at the link in the description. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next tutorial.